Hey, good morning, everybody. Nikki Burnett here. Today is Taste Life Nutrition Radio and podcast streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, where today it's just me. So often we have some really amazing guests, but today I get to talk about some things that I like to talk about. So when I was doing a little research and sort of determining what would be a good topic for today, one of the things that I've been studying a lot is brain health and brain function, and we have been talking a lot about hormones. So I will say that we've been talking a lot about women, but this is also impactful for men. We're going to talk about men's hormones, and as well as some other hormones that are in both sexes. Obviously, testosterone and estrogen are in both sexes, but a little bit some more than others. Anyway, but as always, we start the show with gratitude. So I think this week I sort of last minute decided to go to a conference. If you know me at all, I'm a little bit of a conference nerd. I'm super excited about it. It is through my favorite lab company, Vibrant America or Vibrant Health, and they have a longevity summit. And I get to hang out with like Mark Hyman. I mean, how cool is that? So if you know functional medicine, he's kind of that beginning era of functional medicine. He started, or he co-started, I believe co-founded, I don't really know the history, but of the Institute for Functional Medicine, which I have taken several of their modules so I can dig more into functional medicine and practice functional nutrition, because I'm not a medical doctor. But this is the stuff that helps me to stay at the top of my game, cutting edge, really getting in, digging deep. But the cool thing is too, what I'm really grateful for is I actually get to have dinner with these people and dinner with these speakers. And so what a blessing to be able to hang out with these people who have changed the landscape of medicine, and have brought forth what is a at minimum complementary approach to healthcare, if not what should be the main approach to healthcare, because then of course we do still need conventional medicine. It is important. It's very important, and it has a role, and bringing them together, it really is key. But yeah, I think that's what I'm really grateful for, getting to go and hang out in California with some people who are literally and truly at the top of their game, who I get to learn from and hang out with a little bit. So with that, let's talk a little bit about hormones. I think often we think about hormones, and we really only tend to think, at least in my mind, this was before me really understanding what hormones are and what they do. You think about estrogen and testosterone. So you have testosterone, which is considered your male hormone, which women also have to a much lesser degree. And then you have your estrogen. You have multiple estrogens, which is your female hormone, but men have it as well to a much lesser degree. So it's important that we understand the impact of these, because we think of them we think of them only as for sexual function or sexual development, when they are so protective of our brain health, but they can also be so problematic if we're getting too much of them, of either one of them for either sex. So, digging in a little bit to how hormones impact brain function, I thought was a pretty important topic, and I have a ton of notes here, as I usually do. So we'll see how much we can get through today. But, I think the first thing that we want to really kind of dig into is what hormones are. Hormones are, they're communicators. They are what tell our organ systems what to do. We have our endocrine system, which is what produces hormones. So our endocrine system, our thymus, our pituitary gland, our thyroid, our ovaries and testes, right? These are all part of our endocrine system, and they produce hormones that tells our body what to do and how to react. and how to perform, and all of the things that it's supposed to do to function in everyday life, right? So they are chemical messengers, and so when it comes to brain health, though, they really can influence mental clarity, mood regulation, memory, and really overall brain health. And so when we're looking at hormones from a functional perspective, we want to understand the role of the hormone, how to keep them balanced, what all they are impacting in the body, which is most everything, and then how we can, if they do become dysregulated, how can we then bring them back and regulate them. And so when it comes to estrogen specifically, estrogen, interestingly, and I just find this so fascinating, estrogen supports neuroplasticity. So I'm assuming most people probably know what that is, but it is the ability for, I didn't turn the music down, did I? Yep. So, but it supports, the brain plasticity, neuroplasticity is the ability for the brain to grow and to change and to learn. And if we don't have this capability, then it's more of a cognitive impairment, right? And so we want to make sure that we are continuing neuroplasticity. Brain function also promotes neurotransmitter function like serotonin. Serotonin is our happy neurotransmitter. Interestingly, though, serotonin, 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. So we can't assume that there is a disconnect with the functions of our body, no matter what it is, whether it's hormones, whether it's organ systems, whether it's neurotransmitters, all of, we have to be as healthy as possible in order for all of these things to function properly. And so, let's see, estrogen also aids in protecting brain cells, contributing to mood regulation, memory, and cognitive health. So what I find, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but what I find really interesting is, we've been talking a lot about women moving into perimenopause, moving into menopause, and I want to talk even about the time prior to before that point. But we're seeing women who are becoming forgetful, who become frustrated, who become irritable, who become anxious later in life, and it's often because of these dysregulated hormones. Now, we're going to start losing hormones naturally anyway, but we have the ability to continue to support them. And I do think that HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, has been given a bad rap. Because if it's done properly, I think it can be beneficial. It's not something that I do. It's not something that I can do, not to the degree of like pellets and things like that. I can have some, I do for myself my own normal, a little bit of hormone replacement therapy. We talked about that some last week, that it can be done. And it can be super supportive and really important, and it's going to support brain function. So, but what we can't do is just assume that we need these hormones, whatever the hormone is, and just go take them, because that can also create problems as well, right? We don't want to just go mess with hormones. We've got to understand symptoms. We've got to understand lab ranges. We've got to understand the body and its functioning. We've got to understand disease state and health status, because those are the things that are going to impact hormone dysfunction, or hormone regulation, if I should say that better. So when it comes to estrogens, we have 3 different estrogens that are key players in men and women, but mostly women, of course. And so estradiol is our main estrogen hormone. It's significant in and it's significant in all phases of life, right? So that's the one that we really want to make sure that we know where it is. This one really is probably tested most often, although when I'm doing testing, I'm testing all 3. But estradiol is considered E2. It is important for, of course, reproductive health, bone density, cognitive function. An imbalance, whether it's high or low, can result in symptoms of estrogen dominance or deficiency, of course, leading to mood swings, memory problems, and increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases. So making sure that our hormones are are in line is not just important for our everyday activities. It really is important for what we're doing to support our brain health, to support how we take care of our families and how we show up in this world and how we remember and how we work, right? All of these things are so important. So I'm going to hit just briefly like on E1, which is estrone. So it acts as a storage estrogen, and it is more prevalent during post-menopause, and it's synthesized in fat tissues. So this is the thing that can be a really hard thing to grasp and can be really frustrating, but especially for us women. But fat cells are, there was a time in the history of medicine where we thought that fat cells, that's just all they were. They are just, it's just adipose tissue. There's no function to them. And they either, or there's too much of them, or there's not enough of them, or, whatever the case may be, but they're very biochemically active. And this is the thing that's so beautiful about science. If we are open-minded enough to realize and to take in the fact that science is just that, right? It's really a practice of science, and it's going to change, and it always changes, and we have to be open to which is why I do conferences, right? Got to be open to moving forward and knowing that things are going to change and not being stuck in what we thought was the way it was, because when we learn more, it opens more doors, and we're like, okay, it gives us newer pieces of the puzzle, which might change what we thought we knew. And so that's one of those things. I try really hard to make sure that I'm open to that and open to what I want to do my research and I want to learn and understand. But when the science is moving in a new or different direction, I want to be open to that. But I also don't want to be too open to the things that are the fads, right? This is where we get in trouble with fad diets and these things that just can be problematic for people because it can be so confusing. So there's a little bit of a balance there, but change is inevitable, and new information and new data is inevitable, and so it's a really great thing. But soapbox, so many of those. But anyway, so it's having that knowledge that as well, men and women, this is for men too, that the biochemical activity of fat cells produces estrogen. And so that's a lot of times why women start to put on weight as we start to move through this phase, which it's hard to manage, but it is manageable. So we got to, our bodies are changing and they're dynamic, and we got to just figure it out sometimes, or find somebody who can help us figure it out. I know a lot, but I'm always, having people help me with my own body too, because I am always wanting to learn more and dig in, of course, because that's what I do for my clients. So, elevated estrone, particularly in women, can with excess body fat, can contribute to estrogen dominance and increase the risk of hormone-related cancers. So it is an important, it's important for us to manage the adipose tissue that we're putting on, and just being aware of that, right? So E3 is estriol. It's the weakest form of estrogen and usually more prevalent during pregnancy. So it does help balance the effects of the more potent estrogens and is considered protective against conditions like breast cancer. So interestingly, we can, when I'm doing testing, which is, again, you pretty much always at this point through Vibrant, we can look at E1, E2, E3. We can look at progesterone, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We can look at testosterone and these other androgenic hormones for men and for women, and have a understanding of how they're working together, how they're playing together, as well as then how they're being detoxified, because this is the stuff that plays into estrogen dominance, again, for both men and women, which is what we'll talk about next. So we have both estrogen dominance and estrogen deficiency. So estrogen dominance often is what's going to lead to weight gain and, you know, some anxiety and mood swings and the fibrocystic breasts and that kind of thing. And it can be really frustrating. And so there are lots of factors that play a role in estrogen dominance. And so briefly, which we don't see as often, but we see some estrogen deficiency, which is more common in postmenopause, and it's not fun, but leads to hot flashes, night sweats, cognitive decline, and increased risk of osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease. So it's this fascinating phenomenon that as we're younger, we tend to have too much of it for a variety of reasons that we'll dig into. But then as we start to lose ovarian function, our estrogen production does go to fat tissues. It does go to adrenal glands to a degree, but we can still become deficient, which then is really frustrating because you get the symptoms, right? And so there are certainly ways of managing that. So my goodness, there are so many people who struggle with it and don't know how to manage it. I will tell you that I had struggled with it for a little while, did some research, learned what I needed to do, understand my body. Thankfully, I'm pretty healthy, and it's very much in control. So at least to date. We'll see what happens tomorrow, right? And so I might have to change things tomorrow. But that's part of it, right? It's being open to knowing that the body's dynamic and it's going to change, and we got to continue to figure it out. So that is life for sure. So what affects estrogen balance, of course, are things like liver health, gut health, and aromatization. Liver health really is key. And so what's so interesting is you hear me talk about epigenetics, and there are, I'll give a brief overview if anybody is new who's listening. I mean, we're hitting a lot of people these days, so which is awesome. We've got new viewers and listeners all the time. But so we can have, so epigenetics are locations on top of genes that turn that regulate gene expression. So we have the ability through lifestyle to regulate gene expression, which is the most amazing thing in the world. This is free will, right? This means that I have the ability to have an amazing amount of control over my future health, the health of my children and my great grandchildren on and down the road. So it puts a lot of responsibility on us, but it's fascinating because it's up to me. It's not up to anybody else. So there's a lot of accountability there, but that's okay. That's why we're here. I want it to be up to me. I don't want it to be up to anybody else, right? And so depending on our own makeup, which I love, I have a doctor friend who has been on the show, Dr. Bush, if you're listening. He says there are never any mistakes, and I fully agree, because these locations are called SNPs, or they're called variants. Everybody has them, and everybody has millions of them. But some of them, a lot of them they're just different, right? And who makes us who we are. And so to sort of put it into perspective, say you have cardiovascular disease in your family, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, whatever, doesn't mean that you have to have it, right? You may have the potential for it, but it doesn't mean that you have to struggle with it or succumb to it, right? Because lifestyle and understanding our body, and now today we can have an understanding of our genetics, and that's even more and more of that's coming, which is, again, fascinating and amazing and so beautiful. Talk about individualized healthcare, it's just so good. But we have the ability based on what we know about our bodies and know about our lifestyles and know about what we put in our bodies, put in on our skin, what we have in our environment. All of these things we can control. Now, we may not be able to control what's in the air, right? But that's part of it. But the more we support our body, then the more the body can deal with those insults that maybe are out of our control. So it's a fascinating study in seeing, when I'm talking with people and they're telling me about the diabetes in their family. Hey, Lacey, about the diabetes in their family, about the cardiovascular disease in their family, and their fear of it. Having a healthy fear is okay, right? But having the power to mitigate it is beautiful. It really, truly is. So I say all of these things because there are certain SNPs, I had to get back to my notes, but there are certain SNPs or variants that can impact detoxification. And so again, not a bad thing, but if you know what these variants are, then you know how to mitigate risk. And so there are also things that we can do to, if you don't know your genetics, that's okay, but we can support with liver detox. Now, not everybody believes in liver detox, and cleanses aren't detox. You know, the liver is a detoxification organ, just like the skin is, just like the kidneys are, just like the lymphatic system, just like elimination, right? This is getting junk out of the body, but it's got to work properly. And there are often times when it doesn't. And when someone, you know, comes to me and says, the liver is the detoxification organ, and I don't believe that people need to detox. I don't believe it's necessary to support the liver. All you have to do is look at somebody's genetic variants. Not that we can all do that, but my point to that is to sort of combat that. Is you look at somebody's variants, and you can see that there are certain issues that don't allow them maybe to detoxify properly, right? Is it their methylation is off? I mean, that's a huge part of detoxification. That would be me. Right, so there are things that can inhibit, and there are lots of. So I want to come back and say that there are lots of redundancies, also, but we want to support the body optimally, and so the more we know and the more we support, the more the body's going to function properly, and the more it's going to detoxify properly, and it's not going to get clogged up, because things can get clogged up, and they do get clogged up. So our lymphatic system, which is a major detox organ, can get clogged up. We have lymphatic drainage massages, right? That's not a joke, it's a real thing. We have jumping. This is why we move, why we're supposed to exercise, right? So our calf muscles, as we're walking, as we're moving, as we're, you know, doing the things that we do on a daily basis, they pump our lymphatic system, right? It doesn't have a heartbeat like our cardiovascular system does. So movement moves the lymphatic system. So if we're sitting at a desk all day long, then the lymphatic system is not going to move the way it's supposed to, right? So it can get clogged up, it can get gross, right? So we want to support that. So there are things that we can do to support, you know, detox. So, you know, you've got phase 1, phase 2, and of detox, which are, you know, two. I don't need to get into that, but it's two. It's turning toxins from a fat soluble form into a water soluble form, so that it can be eliminated. And so, you know, depending on the different phase, you've got amino acids, you've got B vitamins, you know, specifically for those who can take them, or methylated B vitamins. Those who have certain variants don't do well with some methylated B vitamins, so you have to take some other forms. Again, we're not going to get into that, but these are the things that we want to keep in mind, and this is why it's so important to have someone who knows your body, who can help you know your body, your genetics, your lab numbers, your potential, and then can help you understand what is the best form of this nutrient for me, because there are so many different forms, and there are synthetic forms which are really not good at all. So these are the things that we have to know. Let's see, DIM, if you haven't heard of DIM, diindolylmethane, I don't ever really know if I say that properly, but it is from broccoli sprouts. I'm sorry, broccoli sprouts, but from broccoli, from cauliflower, from our cruciferous vegetables, can be really supportive of detoxification, right? So just eating food, good, healthy, organic food, can help with the detoxification processes. There's calcium D-glucarate, which is great, sulforaphane, which is from broccoli sprouts. All of these things are really good at helping to clear estrogens and detox. And so, man, I could just talk about estrogen probably this whole time, but I'm not going to do that. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about gut health just briefly. You probably know enough, even if this isn't your world, about gut health to know that it's key to have a healthy gut in order to have a healthy immune system, or in order to have healthy detoxification, and in order to have healthy hormone balance. So what can we do for gut health? Again, testing is always the best. So what can we do? We can look at your microbiome, we can look at potential pathogens, we can look at inflammatory markers, we can look at how your gallbladder is functioning, how your pancreas is functioning, we can look at short chain fatty acids. all of these things that are so important play a key role in keeping the gut healthy and keeping your gut bugs healthy, right? And so there's another really cool process that's called aromatization. And so this is both for men and for women. What is so fascinating is what can happen in more problematic with men, I would say. But what can happen is there's an enzyme called aromatase. And so anytime you hear that, in biochemistry and ASE, it's usually an enzyme. Maybe it's always an enzyme. But aromatization is this enzyme. So back up. Enzymes are catalysts. Enzymes are the things that move metabolic pathways down the line. And if that enzyme's not functioning properly, which is based on epigenetic variants, if these enzymes are not functioning properly, or you don't have the right nutrients to push them down the line properly, with all of these biochemical reactions that are going on in the body, then they can build up, or they can do things excessively, which is what happens in the case of aromatization. So essentially, say for men who are, well, I was going to say aging. Aging is not necessarily the case, but eating a lot of sugar, there's a lot of stress, unhealthy food, unhealthy lifestyle, maybe that beer belly. What happens in this process is their testosterone is being aromatized or converted into estrogen. So we have this big fad now of hormone replacement therapy, or people with low T, doing the pellets and doing all of these things. And so it's not that I'm against that, but what I'm against is not understanding a man's estrogen levels, and not truly understanding all of his hormone levels, because they all play together. And so a man might feel, and I sort of just jumped ahead into testosterone a little bit, but that's okay. A man might feel depressed, sad, unmotivated, right? Because that's what testosterone does. Testosterone is this amazing hormone that is a building hormone, and it makes men who they are, and it makes them want to be men, which is a beautiful thing. Men make me really happy, and so testosterone, having enough testosterone, is what pushes that, right? I mean, there's these other androgenic hormones as well, right? So I don't want to say that there's not, but with testosterone specifically, when a man's not feeling like a man, right, he can become weepy. He can become depressed. These things happen because testosterone is low. But if you go in and somebody says, yeah, you got low T, and puts you on pellets, but doesn't understand your estrogen levels, doesn't understand your lifestyle, doesn't understand the stress, the food, all the things, what will happen is you just create more estrogen. And so you're perpetuating a terrible situation. So it can be really frustrating when, I've talked to men over and over again. They're like, yeah, I'm doing the pellets and I'm doing these things, and it's just not helping. And I can see what's happening. And so we have to, if this is an option, if this is going to be an option for men, you gotta go to somebody who's not going to just test your testosterone. You gotta go to someone who is going to look at the whole picture, who's going to look at you and your lifestyle, going to look at your belly, right? Going to look at what you eat, because these things are so important. What if you changed your lifestyle and then you don't need testosterone replacement therapy? I mean, that would be awesome, and I think that very often is the case, right? And so aromatization is pretty cool little situation. So let's see. So there are some natural aromatase inhibitors. Let's make sure we talk about that. So we talk about men who do really well with zinc, and it's true. Zinc is an immune booster. It's good for the prostate, but it also is an aromatase inhibitor. We also have resveratrol, which is really great for that as well. Resveratrol is anti-aging. It's this great phytonutrient. We hear about it in grape skins, and your dark red, purple fruits and veggies. I'm going to say you're not going to get enough in wine, so don't just go drink a bunch of wine thinking you're getting a bunch of resveratrol, because I think the problems, the benefits don't outweigh the detrimental effects of wine. It's just the way that it is, especially wine today, full of pesticides, full of herbicides. Not that I don't drink some wine, right? But it's just having that awareness so you can make the right decisions. So eating your grapes with your skins that are organic with no pesticides. They tend to be really high in pesticides and herbicides. You can also do these great, really, anyway, the resveratrol supplements, but you want to make sure that concentrated was the word I was looking for. Always working on my own brain function. But concentrated resveratrol, where you're getting really good benefits of these phytonutrients that are supporting brain health, but are also supporting, other things that we might want to. And they're anti-aging, right? So who can't love that? I will not get any deeper into the detox phases. I think we did enough of that. But I do think I want to hit a little bit on, I'm going to jump back to estrogen a little bit, because one of the things that I've not talked a lot about is PMS, premenstrual syndrome, and then PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoria disorder, right? And so this has come, it comes more and more to my attention because I'm hearing about it more and more. And it's kind of, I believe it's a really terrible hormonal imbalance on multiple levels. So we have PMS. PMS is not normal. We're not supposed to experience PMS. So just kind of, keep that in the back of your mind. When I was younger, yes, I experienced it. As I aged, as I became healthier, the symptoms became much, much less. Could it also be because of age? Sure. But as I aged, I started to realize and learn my body. And of course, this is my world, so I'm always studying this stuff. And so symptoms were pretty insignificant for the most part. But I've had clients who their PMS has put them in the hospital due to pain, right? I've had clients who their families are on edge all the time during certain times of their cycle, the luteal phase, right? Luteal phase, so we have our follicular phase, which is when the follicle develops. We've got ovulation, which is middle of the month, and we've got the follicular phase, which is the follicle. And so this is the phase that is prior to when we start, starting to move into experiencing what is potentially PMS or the PMDD, because the hormones are, there are different phases. You have different hormones going in different directions, right? You have sort of this cycle. So trying not to get too deep, so I can cover a lot. So anyway, as we move into this follicular phase and PMS starts to creep up, or PMDD, we have families who are on edge, splitting, divorces are happening, because it's unfortunate, but the hormones as communicators, as what they are, and the extreme dysfunction of them, it's out of control, and it's out of the control of the person who's struggling with it, which is a really hard thing to understand. It's hard for me to understand. I'm grateful that I've not experienced it, but I've seen it, and I'm seeing it so often. And so some of the things that I think that can create this, for one, is going to be the massive amount of xenoestrogens in our environment. Xenoestrogens being estrogen mimickers, they bind tightly to our own natural estrogens, and our body doesn't have the ability to utilize the estrogen that it's supposed to. So we've got these crazy swings and this excess, these xenoestrogens that are chemicals. There's also, there are mycoestrogens that are made from mycotoxins like mold. There are metalloestrogens from heavy metals. So we're just inundated all the time with these toxins that are throwing our poor bodies so out of whack. So yes, for women, for men too, for our kiddos, right? Throws our bodies way, way out of whack. And so I also believe that what can happen too is progesterone is too low. And so if we're experiencing, get to my notes here. Yeah. So here I'm just going to read what it shows that it is. So PMDD is linked to fluctuations in hormones, particularly estrogen and progesterone. Sensitivities to these fluctuations affects neurotransmitter levels such as serotonin, impacting mood and emotional well-being. Right, so it creates neuroinflammation. It creates poor estrogen metabolism. There's gut health. I'm sorry, it doesn't create it, but the neuroinflammation, the poor estrogen metabolism, and the gut health, all of these things can be factors that play a role in the imbalance of the hormones. Then, of course, you have the outside factors, which are the xenoestrogens. So, getting these hormones in line, getting the xenoestrogens out of your life, right? And so, when I say that, yes, it's food. It is, what are you cleaning your body with? What are you cleaning your hair with? What are you cleaning your clothes with? What are you cleaning your floor with? What are you putting in your yard? What are you putting under your arms, right? What lotion are you using? All of these things, if they're your everyday mainstream, for the most part, they're all going to contain xenoestrogens. So and then we're eating them, right? And then we're drinking them. And so it's just, and then we're inhaling them. So it's never ending. And so, I go back to the amount of control that we have. We have so much control in our own home environment and in what we put in our bodies and what we put on our skin. But when we can't control what's put in the air, unfortunately, if we're controlling all of these other things and then supporting the body as well, the body has much more it's much more likely to be able to function properly and detoxify properly these other insults, because its bucket's not overflowing. And that's what how you kind of see it is, you have this bucket that fills up and you've got the toxins. Well, as it starts to overflow, that's when symptoms happen. And symptoms are just the body talking to us. It's like yelling, going, hey, I need you to take control. I need you to jump in and help me out, because I am now overflowing and I can't do this on my own. So like I said, it's got a lot of redundancies, right? But it gets to the point to where it needs our support. We have to jump in and help it to do the things that it needs to do by taking out these unhealthy factors, whatever they might be in our life, and then bringing in the goodness and supporting, whether it's with nutrients, potentially with supplements. There are many other really cool therapies out there that can be beneficial for those who've really become super chronic, right? And so when you're dealing with chronic conditions, this is the body screaming for help. We can put names on them all day long, right? But it's really the body screaming for help. Okay. So, of course, management strategies, nutritional support. Magnesium can be important. B vitamins. Let's see. There's one that I love. If you've heard of Chase Tree or Vitex. Vitex is really great because it supports progesterone. Progesterone is an amazing, amazing hormone. Last week we talked about it being the super hormone. And so I'm just realizing I'm only going to get through about a quarter of my notes, but it's okay. Next time we'll carry on. Anyway, but progesterone is so important, and we see that it's low very often, and that plays such a key role when we're dealing with something like PMDD, where we have estrogen excess likely, but we also have low progesterone. It's this perfect storm, right? And so we need to be able to address both of those things. But we got to know, we got to test, we got to understand where they are, so we really know how to support and get the body where it needs to be. So, all right, progesterone, such a cool one. So its role in brain function is a calming hormone. It stimulates GABA receptors. It reduces anxiety and supports myelination and repair of brain cells. So think about that. So the myelination and brain cells are always being there are always insults to our nervous system and our brain cells and our brain health. And progesterone is super protective of that. So making sure our progesterone is in line is really important. We might need progesterone earlier in life. We might need it throughout our later stages in life. But I think it's a really important one to make sure that you're taking, if you need it, and if your labs say you need it, and your symptoms say you need it, right? Not everybody needs it. But pregnancy is, progesterone is what holds a pregnancy. So if your progesterone drops too early, negative things can happen. And so making sure that your progesterone levels are at a good point prior to pregnancy, during pregnancy, and throughout pregnancy, right? We talked about this last week, how the placenta begins to produce its own progesterone at a certain point. But what if, could it stop? Could it not produce enough, right? So I think in my mind, it's important to continue to know where your progesterone levels are throughout the time that you are working to get pregnant, through conception as well as then through pregnancy. And it fluctuates, right? So we don't always need a high, because then that's going to inhibit pregnancy or conception. But super important hormone for everything that we are. We talked already about testosterone. So, but I do want to say that testosterone supports neurogenesis, cognitive functions, and mood stabilization. Another thing that I want to make sure that I hit here. So yes, testosterone is so important also for brain function, for men and for women. There are for all functional labs, there are functional lab ranges. And so we also have general lab ranges, and that's what we see most often in conventional medicine, are general lab ranges. These are not optimal, right? So they can give us a lot of information, but if we're looking at functional lab ranges, generally they're a little more narrow. And so more red flags come up, and that's what I call it, is red flags. So we're able to put more pieces of the puzzle together. I was with a client yesterday. We were looking at his testosterone. He's thin, he's lean, he's healthy. He is older, so he's looking to optimize. Older, he's probably in his 50s, right? But we were looking at general lab ranges of his testosterone. When we looked at the functional ranges, he was low. So again, this isn't about being okay. This is about being optimum. This is being about the best that we can. And so when we know what these functional lab ranges are for our hormones, then we know, okay, this is how I can better or best address them, instead of missing it, right? So if we look at general lab ranges and nothing comes up, then there's something that we're missing. We really want to see more things, so we're putting pieces of the puzzle together and can know how to move forward to best support. So thyroid, goodness, man, thyroid dysfunction is just rampant. Thyroid autoimmune disease is just rampant, right? And one thing that I want to say about that is often overlooked, is that thyroid dysfunction is one thing, right? It may not be getting the nutrients that it needs. There can be some gut dysfunction. There can be some pituitary dysfunction that's not talking to the thyroid, right? So which is why it's really important to really test all thyroid hormones, all thyroid markers. But what we need to make sure that we understand is, if someone presents with hypothyroid and doesn't have their antibodies checked, there's something that there's a high likelihood of missing autoimmune disease. If we miss autoimmune disease, autoimmune disease is immune dysfunction. I mean, so it might be attacking a specific organ or gland, like the thyroid, but the dysfunction, it's being attacked over here, but the dysfunction is over here. So we have to make sure that we understand as fully as possible all scenarios through lab testing, so we can address the right thing to address. So yes, we want to support the thyroid when somebody's dealing with Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroid. We want to support the thyroid because it's what's being attacked, but we've got to address and understand why the immune system is pissed off, because that's what it is. Immune system's not happy. Why is it not happy? Is it because of microbes? Is it because of hormonal imbalances? Is it because of lack of sleep? Then we got to ask why all of those things are happening, right? So we have these, sort of these downward spirals that can happen, but we have to understand the root cause. There's a root cause, there's a reason why. It's not always easy to figure it out, but we can do our best to address the root cause so the body can then do what it's supposed to do. So can we get antibody activity down? Yeah, of course. Through lifestyle and supplementation? Yeah. Do sometimes we need to visit a doctor? Yeah, of course, right? We want to have the support of our team who can give us all the options, and then we can make our choices and our decisions on how we want to move forward. Sometimes I'm going to tell you that, and I don't do this, obviously I can't, but I can refer to if someone is struggling with an autoimmune condition, specifically Hashimoto's. Low-dose naltrexone can be a great option for a lot of people. It's a drug, and it's a super safe, super old drug. So there are times when we want to support the body, we want to support symptoms. So we want to support symptoms, and then we want to address whatever's going on with the body so we can bring it together, and hopefully then we're not on the drugs for long, right? They are a temporary in order to allow us to function and get through life. Then we support the body so it functions better on its own. That's really the goal there. So imbalance of thyroid of thyroid function is brain fog, depression, poor memory, difficulty concentrating. And so again, there's so much thyroid dysfunction in women. It's really fascinating, and autoimmunity. So it's a really crazy situation that is often not tested, and I don't know why. Or there are only a couple of markers tested. We got to test all the markers, and we got to test for antibody activity. So cortisol, everybody probably knows cortisol. It is basically it's the hormone that is the body's stress response, right? It's produced by the adrenal glands. And what's so problematic with it is, so let me back up. It's an amazing hormone because it's the thing that helps us to, lift up the car or run really fast or to do things that we wouldn't typically be able to do if we don't have that cortisol. And it's that shot of adrenaline. It's that shot of I gotta go and I gotta do this now, and that extra strength. What happens though, and so in that point when that happens and it's a quick elevation, it's anti-inflammatory and it is building, it's promoting, right? It's a really cool thing. But what we're seeing in our society today is elevated cortisol that is remaining elevated. So it's chronically elevated. And so when it's chronically elevated, what we see then is it is pro-inflammatory and catabolic, which means it breaks down muscle tissue. So it just breaks down tissue. So we have a situation where we're chronically stressed. We can't lose weight. We don't understand what's going on with our body. We're losing muscle mass, and so we have to find a way of controlling that, whatever it is. And that's the key to this. I wish I had my little diagram for you to see, but there's, you can put stress like right in the middle, and so if you have all of these bubbles, you have stress in the middle, it's the middle bubble, and then you have inflammation that goes back to stress, and then you have hormonal dysfunction, then goes back to stress, then go back to inflammation, and then goes back to GI dysfunction, which goes to stress, which goes to inflammation, which goes to hormonal dysfunction, right? So everything creates stress. Excessive stress is not just lifestyle, right? So everything creates stress, but then moves out and creates dysfunction, which creates more stress. So it's an interesting scenario. I actually I was doing a presentation and I built out this diagram, and I was like, how many arrows are there? I mean, I'm sure I missed a bunch of them, but it's so interesting. The things that we can do to control cortisol: eating slowly, not watching TV, not eating on the run, walking in the grass, sitting still, sitting in the sun. All of these simple, free things that help us pray. We've been praying a lot lately. I'll tell you, we're in an interesting place in our world, and if I feel compelled to say that if you aren't praying, this is your time to start. I think it's a really important thing for for all of us to be doing. And if you're not believers, maybe consider believing, because this is the time for that also. So, moving on to what else we got? What time we got? Just a few minutes to go. What else can we talk about? Ooh, melatonin. Melatonin's a fun one. Melatonin is this hormone that, as we know it, it impacts the sleep cycle, right? So it's produced in the evening. It helps us to be calm. It helps us to fall asleep. But there are things about melatonin that we don't know about. And what really brought melatonin to the forefront was COVID, because it is an amazing, powerful, beautiful antioxidant. And so, especially in the older population who was, struggling more so with COVID, adding on high dose melatonin, and like really high dose melatonin for this population, was really important. So that's when I started personally taking melatonin. But what is fascinating too about it is there is a protocol. There's a doctor named Dr. Del Bredesen. He's the guy reversing Alzheimer's. People will tell you it can't be reversed, and there you can get to a point to where it can't be reversed. That's for sure. So understanding the signs, understanding your body. Is it menopause or is it truly Alzheimer's, right? These are a lot of things that we've got to understand, that we've got to dig through. But melatonin is neuroprotective. And so let's see. I'm just going to read from what Bredesen says here. So it's important not just for sleep, but as neuroprotective agent. He suggests taking higher doses of melatonin that may aid in clearing brain plaques, reducing oxidative stress, and supporting mitochondrial function, especially in individuals experiencing cognitive decline. He advocates for melatonin's use in brain health protocols, as it can help improve sleep quality, promote brain repair, and potentially reduce risk for neurodegenerative conditions. So deficiency of melatonin disrupts sleep, right? Impairs brain's ability to repair, and increases the risk of neuroinflammation and cognitive decline. So I think, we need to be careful of the form of melatonin. We can't just go out and just say, okay, let's go take a bunch of melatonin, it's going to be fine. We've got to take what is right and good for us and is a good product, because you can take a melatonin and it's not going to be helpful for you. You got to know, I think it's important to know what your dosing should be. So it's not about just going out and taking a supplement. So I'm not here to sit here and promote taking a bunch of supplements. Supplements are amazing. Supplements have the ability to be amazingly therapeutic, but they can also be a masking agent. So just like drugs, right? Drugs are often masking agents. They squash the symptom, but they don't address the root cause of the problem. Supplements can be the same way. They can also be super therapeutic and really load a body with the nutrients that it needs. So we have to be really strategic with supplementation. And I think it's important to if these are things that you don't know. Sorry, my mind just went somewhere else. If these are things that you don't know about, find somebody who can help you, right? Don't go to the internet and just trust everything the internet says. What I was going to say on top of that is, it's wasteful. If you don't know why you're buying it, if you don't know if it's helping you, if you don't know what it's for, if you're just doing it because somebody on the TV told you to do it, you're throwing money down the drain. What good is that? It doesn't do anybody any good, except for the people who are taking your money, right? So, and I'm not saying that all supplements are bad or all supplements are good. Many of them are not good. Many of them are amazing. So you got to know. This is why I use professional lines. This is why I look at the data. It's why I trust the companies that I go to. And it's a rare day that I'm buying anything online. I don't buy things off of Amazon. I don't buy things off of eBay. I'm going to the professional companies and buying their products or using them on my clients, because I need to know that what I'm using is beneficial, not detrimental, and that it's going to work, right? I mean, that's really the key. So I want my clients to be successful. If they're successful, then I'm successful. And using trashy supplements is not the way to do that. So, all right, I think that we're pretty much at our end. What else do I want to hit on? We've got a couple of other ones that we could talk about. There's growth hormone, which is important for neurogenesis, repair of neurons. There are supplements for human growth hormone. I think we've got to be really careful with growth hormone. No, it is intended to make things grow. So you've got to, again, know why you're doing things and know if you're doing them for the right reasons. We have oxytocin, which is awesome. It's important for bonding, right? This is mom and baby. This is the hugging. This is a really, really cool emotional regulatory hormone. Leptin and ghrelin are also pretty cool hormones as well that can be super thrown off. So these are hunger hormones. We don't often think about our hunger being based on a hormone, but remember, they're communicators. You know, so if our body's communicating with us, there's something inside us that's communicating with each other. And so we have leptin, which it regulates hunger. It also has neuroprotective properties, promoting cognitive function, memory, and learning. So we can have leptin resistance, and so that can happen. We often see that with obesity. It also then can impair cognitive function and increase the risk of neurodegenerative diseases. So if we're in a situation where we're not sure when we're hungry, or we can't turn off our hunger hormones, or we're just not hungry, right? Understanding leptin and ghrelin can be really important. We can test leptin. I don't think we can test ghrelin yet. It would be really cool if we could. I would love to see that happen. But we can test leptin, and we can see if there's some leptin resistance, and if there's some stuff going on there that can impact our health, and of course impact our cognitive function, which is the whole goal of all of this, is understanding how all of these hormones play a role in brain health. So they play a role in gut health and liver health, and all these things. So I could build out another diagram where the arrows keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because everything is connected. It's really beautiful. It also makes things really difficult. Everybody is beautifully unique, and it makes my job really hard, but also makes it super exciting and fun, because putting together pieces of the puzzle is what I do. And I work with some amazing people who help me do that, whether it's the clinicians at Vibrant, or other clinicians who I use to refer to, as well as, of course, the people who I collaborate with. And these days, working with Immuno Wellness and Veros Health has been a lot of fun, because it's bringing in the wellness functional piece into the allopathic piece. This is something that I've talked about. I can be really frustrated, as you all know, with allopathic medicine, because they are great at acute care, not always so great with chronic care. Whereas what we need to understand root cause. And so bringing these things together, where we can understand root cause, look at lifestyle factors, look at the daily, and when we need to manage medically, that's what we do, and then guide people, hopefully, to minimize, maybe get off of their drugs. This is the whole goal, and this is why this works so well together. So it's been really fun developing out that program and just getting that started. So grateful for the doctors out there, the allopathic medical doctors, including Dr. Melamed, who has a vision to bring together these two things, and to really truly bring health to people, and not just cover up symptoms. It's pretty awesome stuff. So, all right, I think we are done. Of course, you can still find me. It's still tastelifenutrition.com. You can go to the website. You can fill out an assessment, and I'll reach out to you personally, and we'll chat about it. We'll see how I might be able to help you, or if I need to refer you, I can find somebody who can help you. But this assessment's pretty cool. It's quick, it's simple, it's just a bunch of numbers, and then we look at it together to see what it is that might be going on, and how we might be able to support you in reaching your goals, whatever your goals are, right? It might be just to optimize, and it might be to feel better because you got a bunch of junk going on, and that happens a lot. So I can help to address that. There also is, of course, Immuno Wellness, and so sort of similar situation, but we have the backing of some medical doctors as well. So let me know if there's a way that I can support you. I'm here. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com, reaching just a whole ton of people and having a whole bunch of fun. So next week we'll have a guest. Join us then, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. See you later. Bye.